Moment, let's go to the bigger story on the news agenda, which is the tragedy that's playing out between Israel and Hamas. And welcome to the studio, the Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom, Tzipi Hotovely. Good to have you here, Ambassador.
Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. And overnight, it has been confirmed that the US President Joe Biden will be visiting the area, expected to arrive sometime tomorrow. What do you hope that will bring to the dynamic there?
Well, first of all, we received such a great support from President Biden. I think everyone were moved from his powerful speech and the fact that he understood from the first minute that this is something else, that it's not another round. This is not something that we've seen in the past. This is war that Hamas started, and it started in the most barbaric way that, as we spoke before we were on air, we're still being exposed to the atrocities, the horrific things that innocent children, men and women, were under the hands of barbaric Hamas terrorists.
The report you refer to is one coming out today that scientists working in Israel cannot identify 297 bodies. They've been so brutalized, they are unrecognizable.
Exactly, and we heard yesterday that from the recognition process, 90% of the deads, they were tortured before they died. And it was part of Hamas instructions to torture people to death, burn them alive. Those atrocities we've seen just in the dark times in the Jewish history, like under the Nazi regime in the Holocaust. And this is why everyone is so shocked from this barbarism. And President Biden is supporting, just like Prime Minister Sunak and the whole leadership here in the UK, are supporting Israel's right, not just to self-defense, which is very general, but actually they stand behind Israel with the aim of this military operation, which is to make sure Hamas won't exist on our border on capabilities level, but also on the political level. So we won't have Hamas after this war is over.
You say, so just to confirm, you believe 90% of the victims was tortured in some way?
Yes.
Okay. So President Biden goes there next week. Can we talk a little bit about matters here in the United Kingdom? You are the Israeli ambassador. How easy is it to be Jewish in the UK at the moment?
Well, I think it's not easy to be Jewish to begin with, but
of course I accept that. But in your post as ambassador,
we appreciate the fact that the Jewish people in this community show enormous solidarity with what's happening in Israel. I was in Kinloss when Prime Minister Sunak came to address the community and was talking how he stands with Israel, and he was saying Am Yisrael Chai, which means the people of Israel are alive, and it touched the hearts of everyone. I heard from the chief rabbi just lately. I'm involved with the community very much, and we appreciate the support. We feel like we stand together as one people, and it's important.
To Jewish mums and dads listening now who don't know whether they should or be sending their children to schools, what would your message be, Ambassador?
Send your children to school, because the UK leadership is... I met Suella Braverman yesterday, the Home Secretary, yes, and we were discussing anti-Semitism and the rise of anti-Semitism according to CSD reports. And obviously there is rise in anti-Semitism, but we were talking clearly that this community will be protected. We saw Prime Minister Sunak goes to school just this week, and this is my message. Send your children to school and support Israel.
Staying with matters here, and you mentioned the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman says the chant, I don't wish to cause you personal offence, but from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free. She says that as anti-Semitic. The Muslim Council of Britain are challenging her and saying it is not anti-Semitic, it's a fair chant at a demonstration. Your view, Ambassador?
So it's either people don't understand what they're saying, or they understand and they ignore the consequences. Because from the river to the sea has only one meaning, that if you look at the map, that Israel shouldn't exist and Israel should be totally eliminated from the Middle East map. And what is not, if not ethnic cleansing of the Jewish people from their homeland? So my opinion, I support what Home Secretary is saying. This is a chant that shouldn't be heard in the streets of London. I think that
or indeed Manchester.
And I would like to say another thing. I mean, many people, they understand that Israel went through this horror terror attack that was never seen in my country. But from the other side, they're saying, what about the Palestinians? Palestinians. So I would like to say, if you care about the future of the Middle East and you want to have peace, you need to stand with us against Hamas, because Hamas is the one who preventing from Palestinians to get a shelter in the south of Gaza when Israel is trying to minimize casualties, and Hamas is the one who preventing them to get electricity when they're using it. And Nick, listen, this is the 11th day of the war, and Israel is still under fire. In the last 11 days, we had rockets every single day on our cities. People are in shelters, and we are in a reality of war on a daily basis. This was not just one day attack.
But it's my understanding that it's Israel that's cut off the power and the water, Ambassador. How do you justify that?
I will answer to you. Israel is not targeting civilians, and from 2005, the control on the Gaza Strip is Hamas control. Yes. This is why Hamas is in charge. Now, Hamas is based in schools, in hospitals, is embedding himself in the civilians. And what we need to understand that Hamas is using the electricity in Gaza that could have supplied the water supply for the Palestinian people of Gaza, but they're using it in order to create this whole manufacturing of rockets against cities in Israel like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem yesterday, like my hometown, Rehovot. This is something that's happening on a daily basis. So blame Hamas for the fact he's using electricity, not in order to supply water to its people, because they need that to desalinate some of the water system in Gaza, but actually to fight Israel and to kill innocent Jews.
But what about medical supplies for people caught up in this? I understand, again, they're not being sent through.
So I'm saying again, on a humanitarian basis, we want the people of Gaza to be safe. But you need to understand that Hamas is committing a double war crime by being embedded in the civilians, and doesn't allow them also to go out of their homes. They're actually calling them to stay in their homes. Something can be dangerous in a combat zone, and this is a war zone. And they need to understand that Nick, something that people don't talk about. Over 100,000 Israelis were evacuated from their homes because they're not safe, both in the north and in the south. So we have refugees, Israelis in our own country, that need to find a place to stay in the coming few months. And this is something that is happening in a war. The Ukrainian people had to flee from their home because this is war. And people need to understand this. They need to show sympathy to the fact Israel is trying to minimize civilian casualties.
You say that, but there were reports of an airstrike near the Rafah border crossing in Gaza yesterday. Would that have been deliberate? These are people who are trying to get out.
We never target civilians. I can stand behind that, and IDF will always target only military targets.
Some were killed in a truck on the weekend. You'll be aware of that.
We saw Hamas was actually creating those visuals in order to make Israel the one to be blamed. So I think 2 days ago,
Israeli missiles, weren't they, that hit that truck with people trying to get out?
And I'm saying again, that was not Israeli attack on civilians. We heard the spokesperson of IDF says clearly that this thing that was reported was a fake news spread by Hamas. And I want to say again, it's important for you to understand, well, they came and murdered children in their homes. We saw those cradles. We saw those baby beds were full with blood in the newspapers. They came to kill innocent people in their homes, in their living rooms, in their beds. We are targeting military targets, but it's complicated because this is again a terror organization that doesn't care about his own people. So they're in schools, and according to the international law, when those civilian facilities are turning into military bases de facto, Israel is allowed to fight.
If President Biden was to talk about what's called humanitarian corridor or a safe zone or a crossing point, what do you imagine the reaction would be from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, we're not against humanitarian corridor. We think that it's important to give the world the real picture. We're against Hamas. We're against the capabilities, but in order to understand the geography, we need also to remember the fact there is underground city that is only doing one thing, manufacturing terror and manufacturing rockets to hit Israeli innocent people. And we need to finish this mission of making sure those capabilities won't be there. And in order to do that, you need to make sure north of Gaza won't have civilians. This is why we let the last 48 hours window time for the Palestinians to get into a safe place.
Do you accept there's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza?
So I was asked about it yesterday, and I have a clear answer. I have a sympathy to every innocent person who's caught in a war. But we need to remember who started this war. Hamas started this war. So what Nick, I want to ask you something. No,
Go
actually,
ahead. No, go ahead. That's fair.
I want to ask you something. You know, some people are starting to lose the big picture. When we are thinking about, let's think about the UK. Can you imagine Manchester and London being attacked with brutally Islamic jihadist terrorists, that all they want, that Western civilization won't exist, and walking from home to home and brutally killing them. And a British Prime Minister will say, wait a second, let me think what I want to do with the enemy. No, I think every single Western country in the world, when Americans dealt with ISIS and Al-Qaeda, when you dealt with those atrocities, you fight back.
Ambassador, I've been in this job probably longer than you've been alive. I've never seen anything like it. The terror is on an unspeakable scale. It takes us back to the days almost of Nazi. I am horrified beyond belief. But I have to say, when I see pictures such as this of a young Palestinian, I think it's about, you're a parent, and you see the blood trickling down that boy's face, my heart as a dad goes out to him as well. Surely it does, Ambassador.
As a mother, my heart goes to any child and baby. And unfortunately, the Hamas terrorists, they didn't have this compassion to our babies.
He's not Hamas, Ambassador. His dad's not Hamas.
So I'm answering you.
Go ahead.
You need to blame Hamas for creating the situation in Gaza. Because who created this underground tunnel city that all it's doing, not to take care of the Palestinian population, but actually trying to kill Israelis? Who created this genocide intention on Saturday, the 7th of October, by trying to kill and ethnic cleanse city by city, town by town, village by village? Hamas. So they're the one who need to be blamed on any humanitarian crisis you can see in Gaza. This is my message to you. So we are trying to prevent humanitarian crisis, but we need to understand Hamas is in charge.
Can you give us a sense, Ambassador, of the community spirit? I've taken calls from people in Israel who straight away sign up. They go straight back into that. There's no question about it. Wives encourage their husbands to go to war, and their sons. Dads shake their hands by the son. You've got to go to war. Explain the spirit that's over there, Ambassador.
So I was there last week with James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary. He showed his solidarity by coming to not just to Israel, but actually to the south area of Israel. And he met survivors, and he walked into the houses where those battles with the terrorists were going on. So everything looked still like a war zone.
What did he see?
He saw two things. He saw incredible resilience of the Israeli people. He saw a spirit that we will win. He saw the fact that the Israeli people are 100% united, including with the political reflection with the Unity War Cabinet. And I think he saw the Israelis are certain with their justified war to protect their children. No one wants to see those atrocities will be ever again in our borders.
Last couple of questions, because I know you're busy. In a catalogue of unspeakable events, what shocked you the most?
Burning children. The fact that they burn children. And Nick, I cannot finish this interview without mentioning we have 199 kidnapped people, including disabled child. We heard J.K. Rowling that her heart, was going to this girl, was wearing the Harry Potter costume. And she said, this child is in Gaza now. It's not human to hold hostages and kidnapped Holocaust survivors in Gaza. Prime Minister Sunak in Parliament yesterday said, bring the hostages back. Yes. So I'm calling back again, bring our hostages back home.
And lastly, the events of 7th of October will go down in our lifetime as the worst in the history of Israel. Does the government owe an apology to the people of Israel that there was such a catastrophic failure of intelligence and defence?
Well, no doubt that everyone should take a serious investigation about those events. I mean, there is no doubt that will be a serious investigation after.
An apology, Ambassador?
When
I say you, I don't mean you personally.
Yeah,
the Israeli government
so I'll tell you what I think.
Let the people down, didn't
they? I think many of the leadership at the moment is saying to the people of Israel that they take responsibility and they ask forgiveness. But my personal thinking, if I'm speaking also as Israeli, yes, we don't want to apologize now because we've seen what happened. We want IDF to win. We want our borders to be clean from Hamas terrorists. We want to make sure terrorism won't be knocking on our door again. So this is what Israeli want. Israeli want winning this war.